take just a second to respond to my good friend, Mr. Diaz-Balart, and he is. We had many, many fewer Republican amendments even offered. I think there were less than a quarter. The number of Democrat amendments were overwhelming. We made almost every Republican amendment that was germane was made in order. We do believe up there in the spirit of bipartisanism. But today I want to rise in support of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2010. After spending nearly a decade working to combat sexual assault in the military services with my colleagues, Susan Davis and Jane Harmon, I'm thrilled with the most comprehensive overhaul of the Department of Defense sexual assault policy ever. Last week, we introduced legislation to ensure better training for JAG officers and victim advocates who handle sexual assault cases, create confidentiality protocols, and to protect the victim's rights and raise the likelihood of victim reporting, to ensure that victims are afforded expeditious state-based transfers to spare them from their alleged offenders. I'm pleased to see that this year's Authorization Act includes 28 new sections to amend the sexual assault policy within DOD, and 5 of the 6 provisions that Rep. Harmon and I introduced are included. While I believe the National Defense Authorization Act is critical to our efforts to overcome the problem of sexual assault in the armed forces, the task force's recommendation to ensure the ease of base or organization transfer for victims is absent from the bill that came from the Rules Committee. See, I didn't get what I wanted either, Mr. Diaz-Balart. I worked in conjunction with Rep. Harmon to draft an amendment to NDAA, and I'm proud to ask for this Congress to support. The Harmon-Slaughter Amendment calls for an expedited priority consideration of an application for permanent change of base or unit transfer for victims of sexual assault to reduce the possibility of retaliation against the victim. DOD reports that an estimated 90% of the cases of sexual assault go unreported in the military, and half of the women who do not report rape or sexual assault do so because of fear of retaliation. We too often hear that the reporting process is more traumatic for the victim than the attack itself, and the provision is critical to help address the fear of retaliation that victims face. The report estimates that 90% of sexual assault cases in the military go unreported. That's an extraordinarily high number. And according to the DOD, half the women who don't report rape or sexual assault are scared, as I'd said before. Furthermore, in half of all sexual assault cases in 2008, the commander took no action, and only 13% of reported cases were prosecuted and referred to courts-martial. These figures are far below the civilian prosecution rates. In fact, some women have told us that when they reported sexual assault or rape, they were told by the commander, "You don't want to ruin that young man's career, do you?" May I have an extra minute?
Glad to yield another minute to the gentlewoman.
Thank you. Disturbing findings indicate the need for policies to protect the rights and the welfare of the accusers. I want to share a story about a young woman, a lieutenant in the Air Force. She was allegedly sexually assaulted by a fellow officer. According to her testimony, military criminal investigators and JAG officers told her, quote, "If I were the defense attorney, I would tell you that you gave the offender mixed signals and that no was not enough," end quote. She recalls she did not just say no, she physically held on to her underwear. But even after she reported the rape, she was forced to salute her rapist every day. She trained for over a year for a highly classified mission, since then has lost her security clearance. She concluded her testimony with, "I feel like I'm being punished for a rape that happened to me." It is a very serious problem, getting more serious. I thank the military for the work that it's doing to try to control this, but surely when our young women and young men go off to protect the United States of America, they should be free from assaults from their federal soldiers. I yield back.